Well, my role in the enmienda basically is, I used to be, before my call was tapped by the government, playing a second role in the working against the enmienda. I was just part of the team that worked with the present student leaders in moving people inside of the university and in high school and middle school, where I used to have a role as a leader there when I was still studying high school. And basically organize activities, give out information, try to convince people why not to vote for the enmienda, and to vote against the enmienda. After my call was tapped, I started to play an indirect, a more major role, not necessarily because I wanted to, but because I was thrown into with the sharks. I was suddenly attacked every day on TV, on the Venezuelan national TV, by Mario Silva in his show La Hojilla, or the Razor Blade, where he tries to cut open the opposition in a way and try to show their truth or what they really are about. So a 20-minute call of mine with another student leader here in Caracas was tapped and shown since how are you until good night, talk to you tomorrow, on TV in front of the whole country. That's the channel which is most viewed in Venezuela because it's owned by the government. And I was basically embarrassed publicly, even though the conversation wasn't illegal or didn't contain any illegal aspects. So my role now is, in a way, I have had some coverage in the media, and still working inside of my school, which is law school here in Venezuela, and trying to convince people to vote against the enmienda, and why this will just institute a dictatorship. Not necessarily Hugo Chavez's dictatorship, but maybe an opposition leader that arrives 10 years later who wants to be a president and stays there forever as an opposition, as a dictator.
And what's been the response so far on campus with students that you interact with?
It's obvious here in Venezuela that the Bolivarian revolution does not have a youth movement behind it. That's why this student movement, the opposition student movement, which wouldn't be an opposition student movement, but the third way, because we are not against Chavez, we're not with Chavez, we just propose a new country, and we just try to defend our rights and what we think we should be the Venezuela we all deserve after being a country that has worked so hard to develop and evolve into a developed country, and a country where institutions work. Basically, in the UCB and all the rest of the universities in Venezuela, there is a clear tendency against this enmienda, because it only opens the doors for a dictatorship, or a left-wing dictatorship, a right-wing dictatorship, a Chavista dictatorship, an opposition dictatorship, a student dictatorship. The only country in Latin America that allows the re-election or constant re-election is Cuba, where the president has been re-elected for 47 years. So it is obvious, maybe in Europe there is re-election, but unfortunately Venezuela does not have the same history as Europe. And we know that Europe has had a history of the division of power, of institutions at work. And no country in Latin America does permit this, and it shows. Most of Latin American countries, or all of Latin American countries, have a history of dictatorships and governments that are authoritarian and try to convince that they have the right political ideas by force and not by convincing people in the normal way, which is through discussions and forums.
So you don't consider yourself in alliance? So regardless of what happens on February 15th, what is... I think you've started to answer this, but let's get straight at it. What is the reconciliation process, considering the polarization in this country? Is there a difference? First of all, is there a different reconciliation process depending on who wins? And
no doubt.
What is it? What, yes or no?
No doubt about it. I'm convinced after the 16th, no matter if Chavez wins or loses, there's going to be a big crackdown on opposition leaders and on the opposition movements, that being political parties or the third way, which is the student movement. The reason why. In 2012, he's going to have to run again for presidency. If there's a student movement that's still strong against him, there's a possibility he loses in 2012. If he wins. If he loses out of pain, because he's going to be extremely mad about what's happened, he's still going to crack down on opposition. So no doubt about it, I'm going to be able to sleep perfectly or in peace that 15th if the no wins, because I know Venezuela still believes in democracy and still believes in the change of power and alternativity that's established in the Constitution. But things are not going to be easy after February 15th. Before, we can see 2 or 3 weeks before, the student movement, student leader's car was burned or was attacked by people that support President Chavez. A synagogue was attacked by people that support the President Hugo Chavez. My telephone call, which I'm not unique, this happens to every student leader here in Venezuela, was tapped and we were humiliated on TV. And basically, things are not going to be easy after this election, no matter who wins.
How likely is a civil war?
I don't think so. Venezuelans are usually very peaceful. You can see, for example, a perfect example is here, right close by in Plaza Altamira. You can see people who support yes and people who support no, one standing next to another, campaigning for the different ideas. So this division inside of Venezuela is completely artificial because of the president we have now, and because of his speech of attacking everyone who thinks differently. But Venezuela won't fall into civil war, except if that's by the militia Chavez has created, and he orders his militia to attack the opposition. But because of the people who are going to rise up against the opposition or against the government, I think it's highly unlikely. Going out and partying with your friends instead of going to the movies, instead of hanging out at home playing video games or watching TV, but being dedicated 24/7 to politics and ensuring that your country develops in a way where everyone is accepted, everyone is included, where no matter if you have a red shirt or a blue shirt, you could be admitted into any job inside of the public service here in Venezuela. You do aspire that things will work. Maybe I will never see it, maybe my children will never see it, but I am convinced that only by working and by dreaming or thinking about a country that's better, it's the only way we can ensure this never happens again. I think Venezuelans have learned a lot from what's happening now. I don't know how much and how long this what they learned now will last. But we did learn that we can't live divided again. We can't live where if I'm wearing a blue shirt and you're wearing a red shirt, we start shouting at each other. What I'm scared is that now my image of a president is a president who shouts on TV, who insults people on TV. I'm politically active and I sort of have a political conscience, and I know this is not the way government should work. But my younger brother, who's 14, since he's 4 years old, he's been seeing President Chavez screaming, shouting, insulting people on TV, insulting my father directly on TV. And that's the image he has of a president. So in the future, if he runs for president, that's going to be the type of person he's going to try to imitate. And we just have to continue working. The student movement is here. It's here to stay. It's not a political movement. It's not a political party. So it doesn't come out and just talk about any subject. It only appears when the republic is at stake and where democracy is at stake. It was shown in the generation of 1928, the generation of 1957, and now the generation of 2007. And we're going to continue fighting for a democracy, no matter if it's Hugo Chavez, no matter if it's Leopoldo Lopez, no matter if it's Diego Scharifker, who's president. The student movement is always going to be working for democracy and fighting for this here in Venezuela.
So would you